Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer tells the tale of the physicist who earned the moniker "Father of the Atomic Bomb." A small team of 20th-century scientists led by Oppenheimer developed a weapon that is so destructive it can compete with the might of science fiction doomsday devices. They accomplished this in a very sci-fi way by splitting the atom. Repeat viewings of Oppenheimer, as with many of his earlier films, are unquestionably the best way to analyze, comprehend, and completely appreciate the narrative that writer-director Nolan is attempting to communicate. Given that you might not have an extra 3 hours to spare for that luxury, we'll try our hardest to assist you in understanding what precisely occurred in Oppenheimer's final moments, or at the absolute least, provide our perspective of what transpired. The timeline of major events in the life of the titular physicist oscillates quite a bit in Oppenheimer, which is now regarded as usual Nolan material, with his ultimately unsuccessful security hearing acting as the movie's focal point. Oppenheimer concludes with J. Robert Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy, and Albert Einstein, Tom Conti, conversing by a pond, which is about where it started. Instead of hearing about the conversation from Louis Strauss's distant and silent perspective, we had to watch it happen in real time this time. Oppenheimer gives Einstein his hat back after a gust of wind knocks it off of his head. After greetings, Einstein gives his colleague scientists some advice about how the remainder of his life will pan out, and those words of wisdom are very depressing. Oppenheimer will discover that he has been reduced to little more than a trophy to be shown now that the government, scientific community, and the world at large have obtained what they desired from him. He will receive awards, shake the hands of influential people, and receive praise and adulation, but they will all be hollow and self-serving gestures. In short, the world will eat Oppenheimer up and spit him out, much like it did with Einstein after his discoveries. The talk then shifts to a previous interaction the two had when he was still constructing the atomic bomb, and about the prospect that the explosion could set off a chain reaction that would ignite the atmosphere, finally eradicating all life on Earth, is brought up. He remembers thinking about the end of the world at the moment, and he tells Einstein that he wonders if his innovation would have ended up destroying the world regardless. When Oppenheimer looks intently into the pond, the movie allows us to see into his mind's eye and witness a terrifying and frightening image of a world devastated by nuclear war, with visible from space impact spots all over the place. Yes, it's really lighthearted material, but let's take a step back and look at Louis Strauss' point of view in order to evaluate it for the film's ending. The character assassination of Oppenheimer and the revocation of the title physicist's key clearance, which severed his connection to top-secret government-approved atomic developments and research, were both motivated by Strauss, as it is revealed a little earlier in the film's second half. Strauss goes into considerable length about the specifics of his vendetta against Oppenheimer and between the hearings of his appointment as the United States Secretary of Commerce. Despite the fact that there were many factors at play, at least as the movie shows it, it all came down to two crucial events. The first was an instance of professional humiliation perpetrated upon him by Oppenheimer in a public hearing, and the second was his own paranoia surrounding the interaction between Oppenheimer and Einstein recounted above, believing the former had been disparaging him to the latter. Of all, as we already know, Einstein was probably just thinking about the significance of Oppenheimer's warnings about the end of the world as he passed Strauss. In order to undermine Oppenheimer, Strauss exploited every scrap of information he possessed about him. We all know what happened to his earlier associations with communism, his claimed and actual infidelity, and any other potentially dubious behavior while he was in charge of the Manhattan Project in Los Alamos. It stands to reason that Strauss's unrelenting animosity would finally lead to his professional failure. Rewinding to the Secretary of Commerce hearing, Strauss was ultimately passed over for the position when several eminent scientists and significant characters from the movie made Strauss' role in Oppenheimer's defamation public. A crowded summer film season perhaps reaches its pinnacle with the release of Christopher Nolan's sprawling biopic Oppenheimer. It's reasonable to wonder if there are any more nuggets to savor as the final credits roll on the narrative of the titular, world-changing physicist in a movie as tensely packed as Oppenheimer.